Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott, and today is another wonderful day. We're going to return to the home study course from Walter and Lau Russell, and hopefully you got a chance to listen to the first lesson, which was Meditation Scientifically Explained, and it had some really interesting beginning lessons to lay the foundation on understanding your place in the universe and how God works and the key to inner joyousness. And we're coming now to lesson 2, which is a further extension of that last lesson. You don't necessarily need to listen to that one first. As I have said, I want to release each of the lessons from this amazing home study course by Walter and Lau Russell. Walter Russell was this amazing philosopher and scientist that described the universe in a very unique way. And I've gotten a lot of requests to do this. So this is lesson 2. Meditation Scientifically Explained, Further Considering Technique. There is much confusion regarding the relation of an inspired idea to the technique of its expression. Thousands of times one hears people say, "I could never be an artist, for I could not even draw a straight line." For this reason, we would like to expand what was said in our first lesson regarding this relationship. We have told you that anyone can acquire the technique of giving a material body to any idea. But so can automatic machine or a tape recorder. A technique can be photographed or electrically repeated, and such a recording of a rendition by a master may even be immeasurably better than the technique of a human, for the automatic recorder may record much of the soul of the master's technique. With the human may have acquired a perfect technique with his senses, but be lacking in soul. Just as an inspired conception is the result of a conference between your soul and the universal soul to produce a thought body, so must your rendition into a material body continue that soul-to-soul conference. Every technical rendition of a painting, symphony, or any other creation conceived by the soul of a master is an extension of the soul of the master. Every brushstroke or tone of symphony must conform to the nature of God reflected in the nature of the master. Love is the basis of the spirit, and the law of love is the basis of creation. The nature of God is to give out his love for regiving. The nature of the master must be to give out love to inspire others to regive love. It has often been our good fortune to hear such masters as Paderewski or Gabrilowitsch practice scales and finger exercises. The unthinking listener might marvel at such skill, which one who listens with inner ears hears the silence of the soul, even in a master's practicing. Masterliness in anything is the fruit of love. The soul alone can give out love. The body can render a perfect technical reproduction, but if the love nature of God is not in it, it is not art. For the art of anything is not in the skill of rendering a visible or auditory thing, but in the beauty and love which only the stillness of the light of your soul can give to it. And therein lies the difference between the genius of the master and soulless mediocrity. That is why your constant communion with God is necessary for every moment of life and every stage of your creation. God must sit with you on your piano stool or workbench. Your hands must be his hands. Your thinking must be his thinking. Love must be interwoven in every stitch of whatever pattern you are weaving, every word you are writing, and every interchange between yourself and your fellow men. Love is rhythmically repeated in its givings and regivings to synchronize with the givings of your outward breath to the heavens and their regivings to you. Balanced rhythmic interchange between your heartbeat pulsing and all other electric extensions from the stillness of your soul is law. The basic fundamental law of all creating things in all this dynamic universe. Your own masterpiece is the measure of how divinely you have conceived it and how worthily you have rendered it in balance with the universal law. In the measure that you can extend the beauty of your imagined rhythms to material bodies built in the images of your spiritual conceptions, those rhythms will be the measure of your ability to create masterpieces. The very measure of the quality of your material interpretation lies in your ability to translate imagined forms and rhythms of the universal heartbeat into bodily forms and rhythms which can re-inspire others with the ecstasy of your inspiration. When you inspire others, you are manifesting the love nature of God and the fulfillment of His law by giving love. Those whom you re-inspire are likewise manifesting the nature of God and fulfilling His law by re-giving love. You cannot re-inspire others, however, if you leave God out of your technical rendition. That is why meditation is necessary and necessarily continuous. That is why great masters never go into their concert hall or to their easels or workbenches without an interval of time to forget materiality. They first seek the zero of the still light which centers their consciousness before extending their thought. Images out from that stillness into the three-dimensional universe of moving electric waves, which creation is. Not only every day should be started by seeking that zero of stillness, but every moment from the beginning of anything to its fulfillment. Never start your day's work by yourself alone. Be sure that you feel God's presence within you. If some disturbing telephone call or other distraction severs your inner self from the universal self, open your door and let your sensed self out and let God in. Otherwise, your work will not be masterful. You cannot do anything of yourself alone. Whether you are aware of it or not, you have to acquire God powers even to lift your finger. You are automatically controlled in every action. Why not be controlled by working knowingly with God at all times and being fully aware that God and His law are working with you? Continuous meditation means continuous God awareness. And that continuity of awareness is forever leading you higher and higher into the high heavens of your own mountaintop and insulating your body from physical ills. That and that alone is the great glory of life and of living. That awareness and that alone leads you to masterliness of achievement, peace, prosperity, happiness, and the love of all mankind, which is forever enduring. That is the only thing worth striving for. The very essence of meditation. The basic reason for meditation is that you want to ask something from God. There's no other reason for it. And you do not begin to ask God for anything until you begin to realize your oneness with Him. You then ask God because you realize that you cannot fulfill your soul's desire without Him. When you finally do ask Him, you naturally ask how you may fulfill your soul's desire. You wordlessly say in your heart, "O God, show me the way, illumine my path with Thy light." Your soul asks this in the silence of the universal soul. Naturally, your inner ears cannot hear the answer except in the silence of the light of inspiration. Naturally also, you cannot comprehend the wordless answer from the silence of rest in His light unless your soul is so attuned to the universal soul that your inner ears can hear that answer in the universal language of light. That is the language in which God talks to inspired man who knows God in him and is thus illumined. Naturally, you seek aloneness with God in the quiet of your chamber or workshop, or in the forest of nature where the nature of God is being made manifest in the forms and whisperings of rhythms which echo within your own heartbeats as one. That very desire puts you in the mood for meditation, and the more you thus become companion with God, the more readily you comprehend His language of light and can put words and forms to it. When you have formed the habit of constant communion with God, you will then not have to make any conscious effort or seek the quiet of nature's environment to induce it. It will become a working habit, a fixed habit of working knowingly with God under any circumstances. A cosmic thinker can instantly decentrate to the zero of the light of all knowing, whether he is in subway or in a forest. Let us analyze what is meant by soul's desire. What is the greatest thing in the world you can ask for or become? There is only one answer, and that is to be like unto God and manifest His nature. In its simplest form, just what exactly does that mean? In its simplest form, how can we be like God and manifest His nature? The simplest answer to that is to say that God is love, life, and the truth, which lie in the light of all knowledge and power. That is what God is. Love is the nature of God, the universal mind or soul. Now, as to what God does, the answer can be just as simple. God extends His knowledge and power from the still light of His mind, through the pulsations of His thinking, to waves of moving, divided light to recreate one pulsing body to manifest the love, life, and truth of His knowing, which constitute His nature. And that is exactly what you do to the extent of your knowledge and ability. You extend your knowledge and your power from the still light of your mind through the pulsations of your thinking to create your universe in forms which reflect your nature. Whatever you create is the image of you. You call it your individuality or personality. Whatever it is, your image projected into forms imagined by you to manifest your nature. You create a manifestation of your immortal self by thinking your knowing into form. If you know but little and think but little, you will create a little person. If you think out of balance, you will create an unbalanced individual with an unbalanced body. You are a hypochondriac. You have made yourself into one instead of a genial, cheerful, happy, and healthy leader of men. Whatever you wish to become, you may become. If you create your own personality alone, by yourself, it will have all of the weaknesses of the senses. The more you ask God to help you make yourself into His image, the more powerful of His mind. You will have to fashion yourself into a powerful individual. When His nature and yours are one, you will then be a man of cosmic power, and your creations will manifest your nature and God's nature as one. Our very name for God's creation is nature, for God is love, and love is what nature is. We thus define nature for you in simple words. Nature is a light wave image of thoughts which express God's love nature. Light waves are optically projected from His formless and unconditioned one light into countless many forms of conditioned light, which we call matter. In other words, God is love, and matter manifests love. How your meditation affects others. Your genius does not depend upon your ability to translate your soul imagined patterns into material ones, for your genius unfolds for your own exaltation, even if you never express it through a technique which gives it a body. To awaken it in your soul exalts you to your own high heavens, but does not exalt your neighbor to his high heavens until you have expressed it as a soul-to-soul message by giving a formed body. When the genius of your soul sends out a visual or audible message which awakens the genius in another soul and re-inspires him with your inspiration, you have then extended your immortality to another. He then recognizes his own genius in the measure of your awakening of the knowledge of his immortality in him. That is what is meant by the following quotation from Salutation to the Day in the message of the Divine Iliad. I am the light of universal thinking. I translate the language of light into the words of man for those who know not their universality. Immortality is mine. I will earn immortality. I will bestow immortality. Mine is the power to give immortality. I shall not deny that which will give immortality to those who dwell in the darkness and who reach out for the light. I will reach out my hand and lead him who asketh into the light. It is not necessary to another whom you may inspire that he should have the technical mastery of any instrument or medium you employ to lift him up into your ecstatic heaven. For the moment you inspire him with your genius, he has genius in himself to the extent of the intensity of his inspiration. He cannot bring his heavenly inspiration to earth, as you can, unless he acquires the technique that you have acquired to be enabled to bring them to earth. It has, however, uplifted his cultural standard, and in so doing has uplifted the cultural standard of all mankind, even as one drop of water uplifts the whole ocean by that measure. Your transcendent genius is the result of your communion with God. By your masterly interpretation of the rhythmic heartbeat of his thinking, you've caused others to commune with you and God. Your meditation and theirs are one. You have made them forget their sensed bodies and dwell in their mind, the kingdom of high heavens within you, and all illumined souls who dwell in God's kingdom of light. That is the way that culture gradually awakens in unfolding man. Those who have come to know that kingdom through meditation tell it to others in the inspired language of light. And that language has no words, no sounds, no forms, and no technique. It is purely an ecstatic state of knowing, without meaning. When meaning does begin to come into that ecstasy of your meditation, it comes in rhythms of octave thought waves of light. And those rhythms are always the rhythms of the universal heartbeat and your heartbeat. That is what is meant by being in tune with the infinite. When your ecstasy is a state of knowing without meaning, that is the state of meditation. When, however, idea enters your meditation with meaning, your meditation is also a communion with God. That is what we mean by talking with God. That is also what is meant by inspired revelations from God. The language of light is from light to light, or soul to soul, and there need be no words, no sounds, no forms. The soul understands that rhythmic language whenever expressed by soul. The body senses, centered at the seat of sensation in our brain, can never understand it, even though they hear its expression in words and sounds and see it expressed in form. Meditation, again defined. The seat of consciousness, which is the light in man, centers the seat of sensation from which the electric action-reaction sequences of thinking extend. In meditation, you are practically or wholly severing the extending sensations of your thinking in order to find the stillness of the light, which your consciousness is. You thus lose your manifestation of life, which your body is, to find the eternal life, which your soul is. Let us again define meditation in other words. Meditation is a communion with God for the purpose of acquiring knowledge and power to manifest God as co-creator of his universe. In other words, it is to enable mind to control matter. That acquisition gives you the power to create your individual universe in the image of your individual self, as God creates his universe in his image. Through meditation, you free your body from slavery and acquire mastery over it. The human race has been a slave to its body all down the ages. You and every other man are slaves to your bodily senses, until knowledge gives your mind mastery over them. Since different words about the same thing have connotations which lead to better understanding, let us again define meditation with different words. Meditation is the basis for intercommunication between your immortal mind and the electric senses of your mortal body. Meditation is a conference between your immortal mind self, which knows, and your thinking, which builds images of your knowing. Also your body, which acts in obedience to the will of your mind. Meditation is an expression of desire for knowledge of perfect cause for the purposes of producing perfect effect. In communion with God, you acquire God's awareness, which means cosmic consciousness, by forgetting body awareness, which means material sensing. God awareness in you brings realization of the light of cosmic consciousness in you. When your realization of your cosmic unity with God is strong enough, your cosmic power is the measure of your intensity of that realization. The only way you can multiply your strength to think or to create or to command matter, to your obedience, such as commanding your body to health or commanding masterly achievement by control over your body, is to multiply God awareness in you. Your mind is God's mind. Your thinking is God's thinking. Your creative processes are God's creative processes. When God concentrates his thinking, body forms appear in the image of his desiring. When God decentrates his thinking, those body forms expand into disappearance to reappear when God reconcentrates his thinking. You do likewise, for there is but one knower, one thinker, and one creator in the universe. God is all that is. You are all that is. In meditative communion with God, you become aware of that. To be alone with God is to know the ecstasy of that awareness. Meditation is for the purpose of recollecting your immortality. God creates his universal body by extending the electric pulsations of his thinking from the stillness of the light of his knowing. Idea of God's knowing is projected by light waves through the motion of his thinking to mirrored image waveforms of idea, which we call matter. All matter is but electric wave pulsations of his thinking, recording the idea of his thinking in forms which appear, disappear, and reappear to synchronize with the cyclic sequences of his concentrative, decentrative, and reconcentrative thinking, which characterize the entirety of effect in this dynamic universe of his creating. God's eternally creating universe is the result of his eternally continuous meditation and desire to manifest idea. You create your universe in the same manner and by the same processes and method under control of the same law. There is no other manner, nor process, nor method, nor law. Your universe is your mind idea of what you are. It is your soul's desire manifested into the material image of your thinking. It is the fruit of your meditation. The most wonderful thing about it is that God will give you whatever you ask. Fulfill your desire no matter what you desire. You can make yourself into the kind of person you desire to be, whether bishop, poet, or thief, for the whole universe will work with you to fulfill your desire if you work with its law. If you work against the law, it will avail you nothing, even if you fulfill your desire. Balance your desires, therefore, and their fulfillment will likewise be balanced. Communion with God in meditation will not only mold your desires in harmony with divine law, but will give you knowledge of the nature of God, which will become your nature. To the extent that you reflect God's nature, your desires will also reflect God's nature. This should be your constant endeavor, for its supreme attainment is your ultimate goal. So we see a very powerful teaching that is common in many of the things that we have taught and talked about on the Reality Revolution. It has been discussed by so many authors, including Neville Goddard. It's in the Law of One material. Every single major author talks about this idea. So coming to an understanding of the God process within you, of who God is, of what God is, and understanding that you can't really accomplish anything without this God energy, this God being, this God part of you. And understanding that you are this God is clearly a part of this meditation. Talking about meditation as a communion with God. That's why we talk about going into the silence, silencing all the other thoughts so you can commune with God and hear God when you're meditating. That is the fruit of meditation. But clearly, there is a discussion of the law of attraction and creating reality here very clearly. What you concentrate upon, you will image in the reality around you. And what you deconcentrate, what you forget about, will just go away and simply fade away. It is the amazing part of this process of reality creation that's so clearly defined as we talk about meditation in this process through these lessons. So it's very interesting. He starts the home study course, or they start the home study course. using a detailed scientific explanation of meditation and what it is, you can create your universe. You can do whatever you want following your law, and you can become the bishop, the poet, or the thief. It doesn't matter what you want, but your desire is a significant part of that, clearly. And so I just loved this. It's a short little teaching. He does quote from the Divine Iliad, which is always fun. And remember his concept of light. And we're trying to access that light. It's not light that you see with your eyes. It's the light that created the universe, and that it is the matter around you. So you're trying to tune into this light. And there's also a very interesting discussion about how your meditations can affect others. And that was also very enlightening. Your genius that you move outward can become the genius of someone else. He also refers to the language of light several times here. And there is this language of light that your souls can communicate with that goes beyond words. It's an interesting concept, but this was included in the chapter on meditation. So I'm very excited to move on to the next lesson, which will be Meditation Scientifically Explained, God is Light. Each of these first lessons are about meditation as a scientific explanation with different aspects of understanding brought to it. So I hope you love this and can't wait to go over these other lessons. Walter Russell is amazing, and it's so much fun to read. In any case, please put your comments about this lesson and what your consideration of communing with God and how meditation works in that way. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.